day going forward. And some of these include siloed data. That's kind of been a theme through the history of technology is, there can be a lot of different point solutions. There can be information housed in a lot of different locations, and it's hard to drive decisions if you don't have a unified data source. So that's definitely a challenge people have. Some others include keeping up with security, keeping consistent, intelligent insights. Very important is scaling that technology to face the growth, especially moving forward as the world kind of bounces back and continues. There's going to be very fast scaling in the technology that's going to need to take place. Also, secure work environment, continuity and disaster recovery was a big focus, and maximizing automation in those robotics. Right, it's when these challenges come up, when there's impact on people, employees, you need to have as much automation in place where your business can keep running despite some of the challenges that are happening. So those are the major challenges that were found and pointed out. And moving along, we're going to talk about those trends, right? Sometimes from bad situations, it drives the world forward. It drives technology. It creates opportunity to move things forward and invest in things and really be able to create. And so what we found here was that even though 60% of the manufacturers experienced major disruptions because of COVID, it absolutely accelerated the market to become more industrial and more resilient as well, where if something like this happens again in the future, they're more prepared to be able to deal with it and have less of an impact because of a situation like this. And then as well, the priorities, right? What is it that from what the pandemic caused, were we able to recognize and say these are going to be our priorities moving forward based on the decisions that we need to make? And again, not surprising, supply chain integration was a big one. Operational resilience at 81%. Again, making sure that you have that backup, you have those things in place to be able to continue operating. And improving the operational efficiency was a big one at 92%. That is going to be a major priority and focus for CIOs and other folks in that industry. And then, of course, you have customer growth. We want to get more customers on board. We want to continue driving business, but it was also understood the priority of customer retention. In these types of situations, you need to keep the business you have. You need to make sure you're retaining revenue within your organization. And so it's very important that you focus on your current customers in addition to seeking additional and new business. So those are what we found were the top priority. Eric, why don't I pause real quick? I'm not sure if we have the results of the polling yet, but if you'd like to share what you found.
Yeah, I would love to share, but it looks like the poll functionality might have been down for that one. So we'll just go with all of the above.
Yeah,
and,
all of the above.
We'll call it early. Yeah,
awesome.
We'll make sure it's up and running for the next one.
All right, perfect. Cool. So let's talk about actual investment and how people are going to dedicate resources, dedicate funding into improving their technologies. And so the chart you're looking at right here, it's the top line is they're going to invest more. The deep red is they're going to invest the same. And then the darker color there is they're going to invest less in these technologies. So blockchain, Internet of Things, there was a small desire to grow there. It actually had a reduction in interest to invest in. Data storage, again, also a little bit of growth. Artificial intelligence saw a lot of focus that businesses wanted to implement and invest more into AI technologies. Advanced analytics technologies, a big jump there at 19%. What we at Creatio like to see is there was a very big focus and desire to increase cloud-based technologies within businesses. In fact, a very slight number of people said they were going to reduce that, but 20% of folks said we need to invest more in cloud-based technologies. And then robotic process automation, workflow automation kind of circles back and brings it all home about how companies need to become more efficient. They need to become automated so they can better deal with any types of future occurrences like this moving forward. So now that brings us to the trends. What does this cause? What are people focusing on in this industry and where are we going with it? Selling direct to customers. This was obviously a major focus. It was a challenge that happened because of the pandemic, was how they get this product out, the hands that it passes through. So there's going to be a big move into direct to consumer models in order to be able to adapt to these things. Omnichannel is a differentiating reality, is what they have here. It was realized that companies can really increase their pipeline significantly, as much by 1.5 to 2 times by utilizing omnichannel lead generation. So again, making sure you're as efficient as possible and making the most out of what you have, as well as increasing automation, digital sales operations. It's a big focus. It was found that it can reduce sales costs by up to 25%, and also using data better. Being able to take the information you already have and apply that to decisions that you make going forward. And it's found you can potentially raise conversion rates by 20 to 30% by simply using the data more intelligently that you have. So poll number 2, we're going to see if this one works. Maybe we get a little luckier, or maybe I can guess right again on this one.
All right.
But based on the trends that we have pointed out and you guys have found, which are you most likely to follow? Is it selling direct to the customers? Is it the omni-channel lead generation, increasing automation, or is it driving better decisions using your data intelligently? So assuming it's working, appreciate it. You can enter that into the poll. Yeah. Otherwise, what am I going to go with? I'm going to go with increasing automation tied with data-driven decisions. I'm going to kind of hedge my bets on that one and pick two. But we'll see.
It seems like we're up and running, so this one will be good. All right.
All right, perfect. And on this one, before I pass it off to Darren to talk about some of those specific technologies, if you're going to take a screenshot of anything during this presentation, this would probably be the one, because it's really what kind of summarizes those priorities for action, and where the focus is going to go inside the industry. So those are the direct-to-consumer models, full power to business for inside sales, the driving data, driving lead management, analytics-based sales growth, as well as the full back-end automation, marketing optimization, and digitizing the workforce. So again, that's your snapshot right there if you're going to grab something from this. But from here, I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to my colleague, Darren. So Darren, let me get you to the right slide, my friend, and then I will let you jump in.
Perfect. And before Darren jumps in, I got the
poll
results.
All right.
So
good. Let's hear the poll
real quick. So we have omni-channel lead generation coming in first, and second is increased automation. So you were close, Eric. You were close, but omni-channel lead generation.
Third and fourth. I guess that's close. But
there you go.
Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Eric and Eric, for the introduction and talking about the challenges that many manufacturers experienced in the COVID era. And today, luckily enough, I actually didn't copy Eric's haircut for today's presentation. It's just the way things worked out. But I have been fortunate enough through my career to be able to walk through many manufacturing plants of, processing chicken and poultry parts in one of the largest brands here in America, high-tech avionics manufacturing locations. So as I've been able to walk the floors and hear the stories from a lot of manufacturers, these 3 technologies that we'll address right now really have become more pertinent and been accelerated, as Eric properly illustrated. So, let's roll on to the next one, Eric, and talk about some of, ultimately what the challenges of 2020 have really driven within a lot of organizations is a required adaptability and plasticity to current market challenges. So if you think about, the supply chain challenges that a lot of organizations have to deal, getting raw materials into their plants, actually, and thinking about how to process and manufacture those correctly, and then having your sales teams where they weren't able to go out and visit with a lot of organizations in person or go out to events and meet a lot of customers. A lot of that process and a lot of those challenges a lot of those changes have really driven organizations to adapt. And, the reliance on adapting internal processes has made organizations focus on real business processes and real drive to make sure that they can keep in contact with their customers. So you'll see organizations are spending a good bit more on digital transformation efforts. Let's automate, because any manufacturing building you've walked into, and these can be the most robust, technically advanced organizations, many times there's still a lot of processes that they do manually. And being able to automate those and clean that up, the challenges of 2020 drove a lot of organizations to do so, from largest manufacturers even down to smaller organizations that we work with. Um, Also, go ahead, Eric. Let's move to the next one.
Yep.
All right, thanks. So as we talk about, what this efficiency and agility and productivity from a lot of organizations have done, what the COVID-19 pandemic did was really condense and drive a lot of organizations to adapt in a much quicker manner. If you think about, many organizations drove people to work remotely in the last year because we couldn't work. But the manufacturing organizations still had to have people show up. But COVID-19 really sped up a lot of the transformations of how do we interact with our customers, how do we interact with new prospects, and so a lot of organizations had to drive different mannerisms and different ways to connect with different organizations out there. So you can see over there 70% of businesses increase their digital transformation spend during that process so that they could effectively enable customer retention efforts, but also reach new customers doing that process. And also, there's also been a shift overall in leadership, as far as business executives coming out here and responding to this digital operational excellence. And we've seen a slow shift from IT organizations carrying the lead on many of these business initiatives, where the business executives get involved more in the process of the technology selection, but also how to deploy this. Let's make sure we map out our processes correctly. And many of these organizations find they need to drive not only speed, time to value, time to market in this process, but also increase productivity. And by doing so, they can get a competitive advantage against their peers. And ultimately, why do we change our processes? Why do we need to adapt that? Well, there needs to be a couple of real benefits out of the process, and business leaders are looking for that type of competitive advantage in today's marketplace. So, and ultimately, we always like to highlight if there are some challenges and why we do need to automate those business processes. There usually needs to be a good benefit as far as increasing revenues. The office of the CFO has become much more involved in making sure that organizations are spending properly as budgets were tightened during the COVID-19 pandemic. So you'll see a lot of what does this process, how do we automate this, and what is this going to save us, or what is this going to increase our revenue process? And there have been some winners and losers during this pandemic timeframe. Ultimately, the people who have taken advantage of digital automation, digital processes, and digital transformation efforts have really driven and have higher not only net incomes in the process, but they've increased their revenue. You can see by 11.2% of the organizations who really engaged and took these engagements on as far as a digital transformation effort. So therefore, definite dollars and cents involvement in this process has really driven a lot of these changes. So let's transition over and start talking about 3 technologies here that help and assist this digital transformation process within your organizations. And it'll be fun to see everybody's feedback in the chat as far as what you consider pertinent, because we will do a poll at the end in this process. But I also want to talk here a little bit about how low code enables a lot of this digital transformation. So ultimately, low code and business process management. If you think about, as you walked into one of these large manufacturing organizations, and the teams that are involved are doing their production process, but there's always some gaps in manual processes that slow down and become bottlenecks during that manufacturing process. Allowing a low-code business process engine and automation can really drive a lot of efficiencies through the process and getting the products out to the market quicker. Another real benefit that we've seen that a lot of organizations have been deploying is there's increased adaptability needed. customers are coming back and saying, you know what, I need this, but I need this at this point. They understand that there's some supply chain restrictions and some constraints that are happening currently. But by providing better customer service and by adapting quicker to what market changes are doing, that allows a lot of organizations to benefit from increased operational efficiencies. And another aspect is, because sometimes budgets were constrained during this time, we needed worker productivity to increase in that process. And by increasing worker productivity, you need to give them the tools so that they can operate at a more optimum manner. So therefore, really low code can help out and assist that process. The big one that we've heard a good bit, though, is the supply chain has been constrained. If you think nowadays, automotive manufacturers are dealing with not having enough chips to be able to produce all the electronics within their car. And streamlining, consumers are understanding that there are constraints out there in the supply chain, but we need to give them the proper information at the right time. So having that visibility from origin of raw materials coming into the walls of our manufacturing facility, and then being able to predict and forecast appropriately when we'll be able to deliver those components that are so important that we're trying to provide to our clientele, that has become very paramount in this process. And then also organizations, there's IT skills that are involved in coding and development, but if we deploy low-code technologies that really can enable business users to be able to build their own business processes and adapt their teams in a quicker manner. So therefore, any business application they build and deploy can be done in a matter of days. It doesn't take weeks or months. So really speed their value. Also, artificial intelligence is a fun topic to talk about nowadays. We're not talking Skynet where it controls everything, but let's talk about how this can assist your organization in the process. One area we hear artificial intelligence really helping organizations is on the production lines. Of course, we're out there producing, but as I was telling you about that large chicken and poultry processing plant that they walked through, they estimated any time that their production line would go down, it would cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars per hour when their production line is down. So unexpected and production line breakdowns are really costly to the organization. Artificial intelligence now, with internal sensors and the ability to monitor and manage and look at the machinery involved in the production line process, really can be enabled by artificial intelligence to say, oh, sensor here, this machine part in the production line is actually utilizing too much energy right now, and the temperatures are exceeding too high. So therefore, we can identify that part as coming down to its end of life. So let's come in and quickly replace that before we have an unexpected production line breakdown. Or, let's look at predictive maintenance schedules. So therefore, we can schedule out when this part likely will expire. So let's make sure that we can be ahead of the game and understand that, make sure that we don't have any unexpected downtimes. Also, artificial intelligence really has been able to help organizations predict better when they can deliver their products to their customers and make sure that that process is moving correctly, because the consumers are understanding, but at the same time they need those products, and giving better insight and giving better forecast availability and telling them when it's going to show up has increased customer attention and trust. And therefore, there's been substantial artificial intelligence plays where it can predict more accurately when the items will show up. And then, of course, we can talk about planning across different departments and being able to forecast via AI technologies of how these interactions will happen and making sure that everybody is in sync. So it really can enable a lot of help. And then the fifth component there is assisting with those manual tasks that we spoke to previously, the bottlenecks that don't happen. If we can automate some of those repetitive tasks, and where we've seen this really helpful is within marketing organizations. Many of them have started deploying automated chat features so that when the customer comes onto the website or interacts with the team, they can automate and answer a lot of their questions quickly and qualify those leads as potential buyers in a quicker manner. So artificial intelligence is fun there. Now let's talk a little bit about machine learning And I imagine we're going to have a question later on that will say, "Hey, Darren, what's the difference between artificial intelligence and machine learning?" And we'll be happy to identify that here in a good bit. But machine learning really has helped organizations come in and understand their customer base better. What does this customer buy from us? When do they buy it, and why do they buy it? Now, if this customer is doing that, they have peers out there. Let's see how we can not only assist our customers, but let's look and see in the marketplace who are other organizations who have similar needs, and how can we market and talk to those people. So really, machine learning based upon information and data within our systems can allow us to not only help and assist our existing customers to provide them insights as to how we can help sell to them better, but also how can we sell to other organizations that are similar to this, and make sure that we continue to sell to them. Also, the supply chain management, we talked a good bit about, visibility and traceability in that process. So we can really model based upon data that we have in our system and forecast properly to make sure we deliver that, and improving the logistics that we do with any organization. So the machine learning and artificial intelligence, low code, all three of those technologies are very important for organizations to adapt in 2021. And I would dare say, as we do this poll, let's not just say 2021, but maybe the next 3 years time frame. What should we look to adapt here via this poll? So I have my guess. Eric, you probably have your guess as to what you'd want to put in here, but Eric Hale, I'll turn it back to you. Yeah, there's a 4 coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Well, let's see the results of the poll here, guys. We'll give a few minutes for the results to come in.
Cool. All right.
And awesome. In fact, I can jump back in. I know we're going to be running pretty tight on time, so I can keep rolling, and Eric, you can jump in when we get the poll results in. But so let's bring it back full circle, and let's talk about how low code plays into all of these learnings we've had through the COVID-19 pandemic, and really how those tools can be utilized to help improve efficiency and solve for now as well as the future. So we at Creatio, we believe in a world where everyone can automate business processes within minutes. When it comes specifically to the manufacturing industry, there's certain strengths that we believe are the most important. And that, of course, is the CRM, a unified CRM, a single source of truth for your data. Again, really to be able to drive decisions through data, as Darren talked about with those different technologies, you need to have a unified data source that's actually getting all that information, so it will provide true and accurate information. So Creatio, of course, is a unified CRM. We also have business applications, which are designed to solve business challenges from end to end, really all across any business you guys have, and we'll talk about some of those specifics here momentarily. And we also have a focus on vertical applications, where you have a lot of options of things that might be pre-built or designed specifically for the manufacturing industry, where again, you can start with something out of the box very close to what it is that you need. And then with that low code technology that everybody's been learning about, and we've been speaking about for the last week and a half at this point, just in a matter of minutes, hours, days, whatever it might be, you can customize and tweak those applications so they reflect your company's culture, your processes, and so forth, but be able to take those apps and use them and quickly adapt and customize them. And Creatio also has a host of add-ons and templates. Maybe these are ways to integrate with other systems that you have in place, again, be able to drive those decisions. So a ton of different types of add-ons, as well as templates, where if you have an idea of something that can be automated within your business, you don't necessarily have to go out and, again, build something from scratch. You can start with something that we have in our marketplace and be able to build on from that point. So those are really the key features as it relates to low code and Creatio specifically. And as I mentioned, these are some of the valuable pieces that low code can solve for. And you'll see when you look down the left side of this is end to end. So you can automate the marketing aspects, which bring you from lead to the opportunity stage. And then from opportunity to order, so that's your Salesforce automation, that's managing the products, managing the quotes, and doing all that inside of one low code platform. Then, of course, order to cash, so the order management piece, the manufacturing itself, procurement and supply chain, all the way to service and support, where once you've completed those processes, as we talked about in the beginning, equally as important to bringing on new customers is caring for the existing ones you have, focusing on retention and so forth. So being able to, again, offer service support in a unified platform is of course key, and that's something which is part of the platform. And then the corporate services to run your business. So that's HR, that's internal support, your internal operations piece. And once again, it's all part of one unified platform that people can work in with the low code customization, not requiring all those IT sources to be able to, continually configure and update or to roll out new processes. And so those are really kind of the key benefits. Again, if you're going to screenshot a second thing, I know I pointed out the one diagram, but for your second screenshot, I would definitely recommend taking a look at this one because it provides a lot of details about, again, what specifically can be managed. So for marketing, for an example, event management, loyalty programs, and so forth. So you might need a screenshot in Zoom, but I think this is a great way to kind of summarize the different ways that you can utilize no-code platforms like Creatio. So I'll tell you what, I know we're pretty much at time.
Yeah.
We'll see if we have time for Q&A, but Eric, let's kick it back to you for the poll results.
Yeah, absolutely. And, our offline team has been doing a great job at trying to keep up with the questions, guys. So thank you very much for your presentation. Last results. Which technologies are you planning to adapt in 2021? It's at a dead tie for low code and all of the above, right? So we would hope that low code would come in high on that list as you're on the low code marathon. So again, guys, great presentation, a lot of great feedback in the chat. Very helpful for the audience. We appreciate your time.
Great. Thank you everyone for joining. Thanks, Eric.
All right. Bye, guys. Okay. So moving right along into our next session. Excellent. So I'm pleased to be joined by a couple of colleagues that we work closely with, and it's going to be a real life example of how low code helps the manufacturing industry. Today we'll be joined by Scott Williams, Northwest Regional Sales Manager at Blueprint Automation. Scott has over 18 years of experience in manufacturing and packaging. We're also joined by Scott Wolf, Director of Sales and Operations at Tecosystems. And Scott really is a CRM evangelist, with over a decade working in and around CRM. So pleased to welcome Scott and Scott. So Scott Squared, I'll turn it over to you guys.
Hey, Scott, good morning.
Morning. How are you?
Good, thanks. All right, so what we want to do now is walk just a little bit through, maybe it would be helpful if we start, tell me just a little bit about Blueprint. You touched on it in the intro, but maybe give the listeners just a little bit more of an overview of you guys.
No, like I said previously, it's a 40-year-old company. It is family owned. It was started by Bob Kraken. It was now fortunately passed away, but his son Martin Kraken has taken the reins, and he is the CEO and owner of Blueprint, which is nice. It makes it a good family-owned business, easy to work with, flexible in the way we react and move. So for me, it's been really good, and what we focus on is mostly the food industry. So for me as a salesperson, that's been fantastic. It's really what I've been focusing on for the last 10 years. And, the great thing about the food industry is everybody has to eat. And so we kind of don't really see a large upswing or downswing of business. Even through the pandemic, while we had a downturn, it picked right back up and ended up a really strong year last year. So focusing on food has really kind of been our niche. We do manufacture all of our own equipment around the world, and then we have sales and service and support around the world as well. So it's a very large family-owned company, but we try to do our best to keep it small as well.
Yeah, you mentioned something there that I think that I've witnessed after working with you guys for almost a year now is because you're family owned, being kind of nimble, as you said, right? You can make quick decisions, and you guys have been able to adapt and evolve with everything going on. As a partner of yours, I've seen that working with your team. So, you guys have been with Creatio for a little bit now. Maybe can you tell me a little bit about your business processes and some of the things you guys were doing before Creatio? I know you've been there a few years, yourself in sales, how it was working with marketing, and your leadership team, and what that process looked like before.
Yeah, no, I mean, that process previously, and in some ways still is the old way, and we're working to fix those things. But a lot of that time we spent in Excel spreadsheets, communicating through email. Reports were really just reactionary. When somebody asked for something, we cobble things together and hopefully come out with some data that made some kind of sense to people. So it was becoming really difficult just to become efficient with our time, and that was becoming more important to us as things were going on. We just didn't really want to expand our sales base or our sales group. We just wanted to get more efficient.
Yeah.
And that's where we struggled. So we really just were forced to make a change. I mean, it was just time. They just lived on spreadsheets way too long, and just wasn't working for us. So it was just, like I said, a lot of email, a lot of Excel, a lot of reactionary, jumping through hoops just to get a report done. But overall, it's been a big change so far.
Yeah, one word I heard when I was talking, whether it be with Robbie or Mike or others over there, was there's a lot of redundancy, right? A lot of meetings that would happen, and then the next meeting would be a repeat or something of that, right? Where there was maybe some struggles with what the left hand and the right hand were doing.
Redundant paperwork.
As salespeople, we love filling that out, right? So let's talk just a little bit about your personal impact with COVID. I know you were traveling a ton when we were going through the sales cycle. You were always off in some plant, way off in La La Land somewhere, tracking you down. You were always out and about. How has that changed for you over the last year with your traveling and your work?
Yeah, no, it's unfortunately, it's changed quite a bit. I used to, as you mentioned, I traveled extensively. I was always on the road. It's, I guess, an expectation in this kind of a job where, you're dealing in food and there's high demand, and the demand needs to be met very quickly. So it requires us to be on the road almost every week.
Yeah.
So COVID definitely had a big impact. It took us out for 3 months for sure. Those initial 3 months, we sat at home and did nothing, hopefully like the rest of the world. But after that, we kind of picked back up again. So now the challenge, the one thing that we face today is we can't always rely on our customers being willing to let us in, whereas, our sales is more relationship based. So it required us to be in those plants, continuing those relationships, building those, strengthening them. And we've had to kind of force ourselves to work a little differently because those plants aren't always receptive to having us come in and, hang out and do our spiel.
Sure.
So that's been probably the biggest challenge, is just making that change to spending more time in your office and more time in front of your computer, more time in reporting an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, maybe we'll get to that. I know you're getting pretty good at some reports in Creatio, and we'll touch on that in a minute. But what about, Nandish had a couple slides that talked about some of the organizational impacts. I'm a traveler myself, and I'm in the same boat. Wanting to get back out there and shake some hands, so I can empathize with you there. But What about organizationally, you guys, knowing, you have these larger products that aren't, you're not selling widgets and bubble gum, right? This is long-term relations sales. Organizationally, you guys have continued to stay strong, which I think is impressive through the pandemic, like you said. Let me see.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the move to Creatio has helped us through that transition quite a bit. I mean, I think just it's also gave us the time we needed to implement something.
It maybe was a good time where you guys did have butts and chairs for a few months when we were rolling out.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for just a second. I know in your past you've been part of, you at Blueprint there were more CRM. You're familiar with CRMs and more conscious about that. Can you talk about how deploying Creatio was, through the implementation versus maybe some of the others you worked with?
Yeah, no, like you said, we have about 6 to 7 sales guys in North America, and we have another 3 in South America that all have kind of, some of us have had a flavor of a CRM before, some of us haven't. This is my 3rd personal CRM rollout or implementation over the last 18 years. So I've had, I guess, probably the most experience in dealing with different vendors and different CRM software solutions.
Yeah.
I would say definitely for us, it's been probably one of the smoothest rollouts as far as getting people engaged and using it. That's the one thing I noticed is everyone took to it very quickly. So it was great. We all had the time to do it. Everyone took the time to do it. We literally have all of our, so that'd be 9 salespeople. We have another 4 or 5 app engineers that are all using it. Management's using it. So it was impressive to see how quickly we were able to pick it up and implement our own, I guess, workflows into the way we like to see things, the way we like to work. That was one of the coolest things I enjoyed about it is, I've worked with some of, I guess we'll call them the big box CRM, and I've worked with the other side, the really small, small ones. So for us to take this on and be able to manipulate it enough and create it so it works with the way we want to work.
Yeah.
And that without having to go hire, a person full time to do that was key. I think that really helped get everybody on board quickly.
Good. Yeah. I mean, you've kind of been one of the few major champions over there, and you've obviously got a 9 to 5 outside of being a CRM admin, right? So that's nice. Talk to me a little bit about maybe some of the improvements. We talked about the word redundancy or whatever about your communication now with marketing. We talk a lot to Robbie, and what does that look like for you guys getting visibility into his efforts maybe a little easier or more seamless than before?
Yeah. I mean, we could spend probably 20 minutes talking about the process before, but just to give everyone a picture, it was literally, we would go to a trade show, we'd get our lead sheets, we'd fill them out as we're talking to the customers, and it was just photos. I mean, they would take photos of these things and email them out. And it was just like, okay, here's your lead. There's no tracking to it. There's no information behind it. That's it. So it was kind of difficult, I guess, for us to target, market, and plan appropriately and get ourselves in a position to be in a place for success because we weren't really doing anything with the data. We were just, here you go, and hopefully somebody used it, and if they didn't, they didn't.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a challenge there. Disconnect previously. It's been nice now because you can just upload the data through Creatio. It literally auto-populates to all the right salespeople. And all we have to do internally is, as a sales guy, is log into Creatio. We see that we have open leads, and we can then start touching them and making contact and move them through a lead funnel, I guess we'll call it.
Yep.
And for us, it provides us a lot more back end information. So now we know where we need to put our money going forward, right? Hey, we spent $50,000 on this trade show. We only sold one machine. Maybe it's not worth doing it anymore.
Yeah,
So,
that was really difficult, if possible at all, before maybe to get some of that analytics around marketing.
yeah, that's one of Robbie's biggest frustrations. I mean, he would go into our leadership meetings and he just doesn't have an answer for them.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, let's actually move to that leadership, because I think that's the other part, is some of the reporting. I know you've taken a key role in that, working within the dashboards and some of the printables and reports. Is the also output, right? You've got now the left and the right hand of sales and marketing working together, but I know Rocco and some of the executives get in every day and look at the dashboards, and I know that's kind of been your baby a little bit, or you've taken a lead on that. So can you talk about maybe the ease of building some of those reports and dashboards, and how that's helped you guys make better decisions?
Yeah. No, I think that's probably one of the most powerful pieces to using the Creatio software for us is, I, I don't want to put myself down, but I'm just a sales guy, so it's weird that I'm the one being the technical guy implementing dashboards and reports and all this fun stuff. But I enjoy it. It is not hard to learn. It's kind of WYSIWYG, I guess we'll call it.
Yeah.
What you get. So as you build it, the report populates, and you can kind of see, what that report's going to look like and break down to, and and you kind of fine tune that over time, and it gets better over time. But I think that's been one of the cool parts about this, and I know Rocco and the executive team love not needing to hire somebody, right? It's not another salary.
Yeah.
Have somebody like me doing it, which is good. That way, I'm a little more intimate with the software anyway, because I use it daily. And so it's probably good to have somebody like me highly involved in building those reports. And I know from a time saving standpoint, I mean, just sales guys alone, it's, just the dashboards and reports we've built already. I don't know, what are we, 6 months into this?
Yeah.
Right? It saved us probably, I would say, 2 to 3 hours a week per sales guy. And management, that's probably, 5 hours a week they're saving. Just to very quickly go and pull a forecast, or go and pull, an open leads report. I mean, just having that data at the touch of your fingers whenever you need it has been extremely helpful and time saving. And that's probably most important to all of us right now, is just being more efficient with our time, because it's getting tough to cram everything into a 8-10 hour day,
especially when we do get back on the road again and start traveling. And so let's talk about that kind of as my last question, I think, is, when we were working with you guys, I was really excited because there was a lot of really cool stuff we were talking to you about to help improve some of these processes. And we're, I think, candidly kind of in the infancy with getting you guys on a centralized system, with the improvements that we've discussed between sales and marketing and some reporting. But we've got some really cool stuff with the field service team, for some field service management, some really great integrations into ADP. So when those guys are out in the field, I guess just high level, maybe talk about some of the future state stuff that you're excited for, that as we're growing with you guys.
Right. Yeah. The list is long, to be honest. First for us is definitely going to be, it's very focused on sales right now. So I think the next step for us is going to be definitely to get all of our proposal templates, order templates, RFQs, things like that we're having all that redundant time entering in a customer name, address, phone number, contact, right? Where that information really, we've already got it. Why are we entering it multiple times? So that is going to be first, is to get those templates into Creatio so we can auto-generate a lot of those documents that we have to build on a regular basis. And that's probably nearest and dearest to my heart, because that saves me the most time.
Sure.
Second up, I think, will be probably ERP. This is just came down the pipe. We haven't even talked about it yet, but we're now, I guess, looking for a new ERP. So that's going to be really important and play a role into how we integrate and talk with each other, and what kind of data can we pull and push, etc.
Yeah.
And then after that would be service integration, get the service team on it, start using service cases and tickets through there, so that it's trackable, and the sales guys have visibility to it. Right now they use some other software that we just don't have connection with, and it's not the best anyway. I think they're looking to change that. And then last, once we get service involved, it would be the ADP integration. So while they're in the field, hopefully they've got a mobile device in their hand and they can just log in their hour, right? Close the job ticket, I'm leaving the customer site. Should hopefully automatically start generating invoicing and things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I think we've got a long road to go, but I'm excited to see what we've done in 6 months, and
Same.
Looking forward to the next level.
Yeah, me too, man. I mean, it's really been a fun road, though short here for 6 months. We're excited to continue that crawl, then walk, then run with you guys and get it moving. So,
Scott, nice things I think with like Blueprint and being a family-owned company is, like you said, I think that's one thing that made it successful. Is like we kind of jumped into everything really fast, but once we got into it, Blueprint said, okay, let's take our time. We know this is a long-term process.
Yeah.
And don't feel like you're in a hurry to clean everything up and make it nice. But sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. No, I was going to close, so that's nice to hear. Yeah, we're excited to continue a good relationship with you guys long term. So, Nandish, I'm going to pass back to you, Scott. I really appreciate you taking your time out of your busy day. Thanks for sharing your story with us and the audience.
Wow, another great session, guys. Thank you very much. And that brings us to our third session, real-life low-code experience, implementing low-code powered service processes for manufacturers. And I'm joined by my good friend, Nandish Madhapati, Enterprise Solution Manager here at Creatio. Nandish, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful, Eric. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well. I feel like I've been running a marathon as well, but we're hanging in there. It's been exciting. So I will turn the floor over to you, Nandish, to deliver your riveting presentation.
Oh,
the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Eric. The pressure is on me now. Well, good morning, everyone. Nandish Madhapati, as Eric indicated, I'm the Senior Solution Manager here in the Boston office, Creatio's headquarters. Much as probably you might have heard of me before in the past, yesterday I did a low code on the banking side. Today it's focused mostly on the manufacturing side as well. So I have a couple of slides to go through just to level set everybody on what are the expectations are. Anytime we talk about low code, no code, we always need to know if there is really a demand for it. And if so, what is driving it? What are some of the challenges that the manufacturers are facing? And typically when you think about manufacturers, you think about automotive companies, but that's not reality, right? Because there could be manufacturers of laptops, equipment, small scale manufacturers, life sciences, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot to it than just the automotive side of the house. So with that, let's go ahead and understand what are some of the trends that is driving people towards low code, because everything is coming down to ultimately customer expectations. Our domain, the target audiences are changing, right? So my kids who are 10 years old, they don't know what anything other than a smartphone, because they've they were born post iPhones. So they are just used to it. They just don't understand the old terms of e-commerce or anything like that. They just understand those are table stakes, right? So they are used to the Amazon experience. So what really is happening is this traditional old school manufacturers who used to go and work with the distributors, suppliers, so on and so forth, they now have to adapt. Sometimes they have to sell direct to the customers, right? So that is emerging as a big trend. Omni-channel is becoming a differentiating reality. Omni-channel simply means that there are multiple channels, but the user experience is exactly the same. So whether I reach through the manufacturing company, through the chatbot, or through the email or phone call, I expect them to know who I am, and therefore the user experience should be amazing. So customer expectations is significant. If there's good customer expectations, I'm going to do more business with them. Great example is Apple, who just embodies customer expectations and then builds products surrounding it, right? Ultimately, Apple is getting rewarded for that. Profitable company, $1 trillion plus in in market share, market value. That is amazing. So those are proof in pudding for that. Now, before we get into the actual low code, no code, and how Creatio can help fix them, we need to understand from the manufacturing executives what are some of the concern areas. Trends are great, but what are some of the concern areas and how we can help them, right? Now, there are certain external factors that obviously has an impact that we cannot help them. For example, global recession. Well, Creatio can't help with global recession, but we can certainly help with the technology, right? So supply chain disruptions happen a lot. Recently, there was an example of Suez Canal being, blocked by a ship that went astray. That had a significant impact on the supply chain. Products were delayed, perishable goods got destroyed. Companies who were adaptable, who were able to modify their workflows, come up with solutions, were able to overcome that. Otherwise, there was chip disruptions, and because of the hurricanes in Taiwan, so therefore there was no chips for laptops or cars. These days, every car is supply chips. So everything is interconnected, and how do you overcome those challenges very quickly is where we can help with. Now, in order to make those changes, in the past, you needed to have high cost developers, but of late with low code, no code, people who know this business inside out, people who know supply chain inside out, people who know how to introduce new products inside out. If you give them the necessary technology, they will be able to overcome challenges, they'll be able to overcome bottlenecks and come up with amazing workflows and reduce the inefficiency and thereby increase the number of costs. And that is a direct impact on the financials, which is what all the CEOs and the key executives of any manufacturing company is interested in. So when we talk about manufacturing companies, typically we talk about lead to cash and after sales effect, right? So when you start breaking down into chunks and pieces about what is going on from lead to opportunity, opportunity to order, from order to order fulfillment, and subsequently cash collection, then you can chunk it up into smaller areas: sales automation, product management, code management, order management, manufacturing, and then you can divvy them up into smaller areas about quality control and so on and so forth, right? So those are all important things from how we can go after using the low code, no code business processes. So what I mean by that is invoicing management. Make sure that as soon as the invoice is coming in, nothing is falling through the cap. A good example of that is to create an invoicing help desk, like a financial help desk, so that the billing department, the financing department receives their bill invoices in time. Somebody acts upon that. Nothing is falling through the crack because they are working on thousands of invoices at the same time, especially in enterprise companies. And we can enable that using efficient workflows. Same thing from order fulfillment, same thing from the order processing, same thing from the quality control. All of those smaller niche areas where we know the workflows inside out, we can help build them using low code. And over a period of time, these modular applications can overall take over the enterprise. And that's where Creatio's value proposition comes in. So with that, let me go ahead and jump straight into the demonstration. I talked about, if you recall, about product roadmap, right? So for example, over here, I'm looking at Creatio from a latest perspective. So whether you're working from sales or service or whatever it is, you get extensive dashboards. Now, why did I start with dashboards, you might ask, right? And the reason is if you cannot measure something, you're not going to improve it. So if you have the ability to measure anything, whether that be existing customers, opportunities, whatever that may be, or from a service perspective, what is going on from a service perspective, how many invoices are falling behind, what are the cases that's coming through, what are the sources of the cases, anything strong, these kinds of information that you can go and able to understand, you will then be able to identify where the bottlenecks are, where are you spending too much time, and then come up with low code, no code business processes to take care of them. Now let's isolate a quick example of a new product introduction. This is a very common problem that is faced by most of the manufacturers, right? As they introduce new products, what are the scales of things that they have to do? So for example, if I go into the sales side of the house, there is obviously a product catalog, right? But there are multiple teams that will be working on this. What does that team look like? So for example, if say Microsoft want to introduce a new operating system, or if there is a new laptop, whatever that may be, there needs to be a workflow that needs to be taking the end user from the ideation phase all the way to the release cycle, right? And within each of these stages, whether that be ideation, understanding the marketing feasibility, making sure it is going through the due testing, working with marketing, understanding what the pricing model should look like, every step needs to be accounted for. So how did we build this, right? So that's one of the key questions. So how was this product built up? Let me first walk you through a quick example, and then I'll expose the low code, no code process of how this was built in from a page designer perspective. How did we do it from the business process perspective? So whenever we introduce, say in this case, a brand new tablet from on behalf of Lenovo's, ideally everything begins with an ideation phase. You're working with a team of designers, assemble a team of designers, research and understanding what is there a market for this, right? And then you may want to conduct market surveys, collect the feedback, and then design what that external structure is going to do this. So this is coming from the design engineers, right? In the market, there is Apple embodies this much better. You may have heard of Johnny Ive or Eve, however he says his last name. He designs the external structure and then goes to the internal team and says, now build a product based upon that. Now they have to come up with the internal hardware and the software associated with that as well from a user experience. But everything begins with that clay model. The same thing happens from the automotive side as well. So ideation is extremely important. So once you build a team of engineers, designers, and say that, well, I built this design, then we are going to basically try to streamline those operations as well. So let's say in this case, we want to understand if there's any similar markets, similar products in the market. Apple embodies this extremely well because they're usually not the first one to introduce a new product, but they're also always the best one to introduce something best that is out there among everybody, right? So as soon as the ideation phase is completed, it then Creatio in this case is going to take you to the feasibility study. Making great products is awesome, but is there market for it? If you make this product and invest $10 million in R&D and coming up with a prototype, are we going to realize $1 billion out of that? There needs to be a market feasibility study. So now you can see that it is moved away from the design stage into the marketing team. So that kind of going from one area, one department into the other areas is controlled very well by Creatio. And likewise, once we do the feasibility, then we do the testing, collect feedback, then we go into the pricing, and eventually we're going to release it, right? And the question comes, how is this page laid out, right? So for that, we allow you to do is to use the low code, no code methodology in terms of designing the pages itself. So right now I'm looking at the product page. You can see there's a photograph of the page, there's name, there's general information, prices and availability. There you go. So you see the name, and then there are tabs like general information, prices, and availability. So these are very easy to do, and you can configure them very quickly. Then, of course, if you're trying to do this from a multinational perspective and you want to have different currencies, it's very easy. Simply drag and drop that, and then you'll be able to use that field within the new. As soon as I say this object, save this page, obviously that new object will show up, and right below type, you will then see currency. Currently, currency is not visible, but you'll be able to see that, right? But that's not all. So low code, no code is not just limited to taking care of existing data, especially when you're working in a unknown environment. There's always newer data that needs to coming in. So that is a given, right? So in such a case, we will allow you to build newer data elements, data modeling inside of the page itself. The only question that you got to ask is what kind of data are you working on? Is it a Boolean, date and time, decimal, integer, whatever that may be? So if this is a date and time, maybe the last time the team met together to schedule a design review or whatever that may be, simply drag that in here, and then we allow you to come up with new data, and this is automatically stored into the Creatius database, and everything is golden. So that's again goes back to the low code, no code way of making things very easy, right? And of course, for people who are very ambitious and they want to, say that, I'm not interested in low code, we do allow that too, because whatever I showed you in there is easily converted into the source code. And if you want to play around with the source code by typing things in, we allow you to do that as well. So what I showed you previously was no code, everything was drag and drop. And if you want to make certain modifications to the pages that you want to have complete control over it, then we allow you to get that source code as well. So that's on the page designer. But how did we move from one stage to the next stage? So that comes from what we call as a dynamic case management. In this case, the product release has different stages in here, right? I created an ideation phase, a feasibility study, testing, and pricing. And within each of them, I have the ability to create different tasks, send out email notification, and in instances where I need to get approval from upper management to go from to say that, well, this this is a go or a no go, or testing from the testing department to say that the product meets all of the requirements, environmental, user acceptance, design testing, crash testing, you name it. Those kinds of approvals are procured. Then you can go into pricing. So you can get all of those basic elements of workflows that you typically do all in here. And finally, there is, of course, the sub process. I think I don't need to mention this, but ideally, this is where if you have a very structured process, a good example is the approval process. The approval process may have to go from the initial designer to the chief designer to the chief architect to all the way up to the operations team. And once they give their approval process, then the product design lead engineer or product design release engineer will then have to go and release that, give their approval, and then it's pushed out to production. So those kinds of things can be done extremely easily using Creatio, right? So that was on the low code, no code part of new product introduction. But that's not all. So from a service perspective as well, one of the key things that happens is breakage. Things always break, especially in manufacturing, right? One of the key components that we need to identify is as and when those support cases come into the product call center, we need to make sure that if there is a theme, a certain trend that you're noticing. So for example, let's say the call center receives calls from numerous people in the United States or in Canada or in APAC region, wherever that may be, about a particular laptop getting overheated for whatever reason, right? So as and more cases come in, now you start noticing that trend, and you can measure all of that, like I said, using the dashboards. It's very easy to measure them, right? Once you have those analytics, then you can identify what is that causing it, what is causing that. So therefore, you can use something like configuration items, which you can actually build as a custom object, understand how does that configuration item, what does it depend upon? Because it's not usually sitting in an isolation, right? Most of these manufacturing items are not component designs, these are system designs, meaning that one part has multiple dependencies. Maybe it is causing some signals over, it's causing some overheating, wherever that may be. Once you identify and track down what that issues look like, then you'll be able to go ahead and create a problem. What is really happening in here is that using low code, we have simply created a case and then created a new problem and say that, hey, in this case, we are noticing that the laptop shuts down frequently because of overheating. That's what the customers are telling to us, right? And by the way, design team engineers who, by the way, have no visibility to what is going on in customer service cases, these are a list of cases that are making up those issues. We are not just making it up. There is genuine support cases that is coming from customers. So you can see that using Creatio, using the native elements of cases, we are connecting nicely into the problem management, right? And now we have created a single problem where we have combined various cases and said that that is where the problem is coming from. It is attached to a particular configuration item, and this is who is being reported to. But again, from here on, we can then start creating different kinds of workflows to the design engineers to say that, hey, product development team, once you have come into these issues, assemble a team of people and start working on identifying what is number one causing that issue. And once you have identified those causes, then you can identify a change management. What is that change that you want to do in the design to overcome those overheating issues in this laptop, right? And then what we do over with Creatio is to identify those resolutions. You can see that there's a resolution for CR1, which means that the product team has identified a change management where they say that, okay, we acknowledge that there is an issue to a particular problem that has been identified, and there are certain problems with this it is already attached to the problem, and now we're going to identify what are those design changes. We're going to start isolating them. We're going to come up with design changes, and then we're going to go into testing for those design changes to make sure that it will work exactly the way we have designed it, and it'll work in the real world, in the real world, right? And once that is done, obviously, then it is time for us to go ahead and start releasing them, because once you have come up with change management, it is very important that we start executing them, and then we start releasing those, making those changes in time. So for example, a good example is a vaccine rollout that is going on in the world right now, right? You cannot just create 7 billion vaccines and inoculate people, vaccinate people in a single day. There needs to be a schedule, there needs to be a release management. We figure out where the high priority items are, then you're going to do those things. So in order to facilitate that, there is a release mechanism where you can say, okay, I'm going to fix up laptop issues, and my plan on how we are going to deploy is by notifying the sales team, making people aware of it, coming up with marketing materials, identify key components, key accounts where we want to go ahead and fix them, and then over a period of time come up with a deployment cycle, and then we will eventually release it and then say that, well, we identified a problem using cases, then we identified those design changes, and now we are releasing this mechanism, uh, releasing the fix for them. So those are all areas that you can easily do. And just like I showed you previously, what you can do potentially with the new product introduction is the same low code, no code business process that you'll be doing from the changes or problems or anything like that. It's very easy to do that. You're just basically assigning tasks. And of course, these are all low code, which means that if you want to move this early in the cycle, simply drag and drop that. It's very easy to start moving things around. It's almost like playing a video game is the way I describe it. It's because the key goal of low code, no code is not to let people learn a new programming language or learn new technology, but to make them more efficient, so they're spending less time learning new technology and doing more time trying to fix that issue. So with that, I think I'm almost at the end of my time. So Eric, I'll take any questions if there's anything in the chat.
All right, let me see what we have here. All right, so let's take a look. So you get a question regarding your dashboard, right? So can a business user build a similar dashboard without IT?
Absolutely. And when I mean low code, no code, everything is built very easily. So for example, if you want to go into edit page, it simply brings up a page designer and tells you how do you want to define these kind of pages. It's very easy. You just define what kind of charts you want to do, spline, line, bar, metric, whatever that may be. And once you're done with this, simply select a particular tab, and then it'll, as long as you're able to create a chart inside of Excel, like you'll be able to create that within Creatio. You can say what kind of color do you want? Is it bright colored, green, whatever that may be. It's very easy to do that on the fly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of a follow-up question to that one. How long does it take to usually create one like that?
Not too long, actually, to be perfectly honest with you. This is a very common questions that we get all the time. Is how long does it take? And then the key goal with low code, no code is the learning curve is very flat, right? It's intended for the end users, the business users, people who don't use technology day in and day out, but they'll be using the processes day in and day out. We give them the tools, great things will happen. It's almost like giving an iPhone to a 2-year-old, and within no time they're able to pick it up, right? So my daughter picked up iPhone in a matter of 10 minutes. So it's very much geared towards that. That's the inspiration for us.
Excellent, excellent. Here we go. We have another question surrounding customer support model. So the question is, can I build a robust customer support model using your product? And I think you showed some of that within the demo itself. But let's hear how you would respond to that question.
Absolutely. So the good news is that Creatio, because it's an intersection of CRM, low code, and business process all together, it does have a native object for case management. But on the other hand, if you were to create your own request management, that doesn't sit very well within the case management profile, the short answer is yes. For that, you'll be taking advantage of the Studio platform, and then you can create unlimited number of custom objects and then enrich that with workflows like I showed you previously with the DCMs and the business process management. And to be perfectly honest with you, I'm doing a demo today to a customer where they have request management for literatures for marketing team. They have request management for credit increase to the financing team. They're not technically customer service requests because they're not going to the customer service team, but they're still request management. And it was very easy for us to build that. It took us about an hour, less than an hour to build it.
Wow, that's amazing. Nandish, there's lots of questions in here, lots of nice comments about your presentation. I'll let you read through those as we move into our next section. But really would like to thank you. 2 days in a row, 2 phenomenal presentations.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thanks, everyone.
All right, Nandish. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Paya, co-founder and CEO of Mitra Innovations. And last but certainly not least, we have Basil Malik, CRM practice leader at Blytheco. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right. Thank you. As we're running this marathon, we've had a lot of great material, and these are always fun, right? We get away from the slides and have a live conversation. So I like this at the end because it gets me out of slide mode. So perfect. Our discussion today, gents, is about questions surrounding digital transformation in the manufacturing industry, and I really can't think of a finer panel than what we have here. I've worked with each of you, and manufacturing is a definite strong point for you guys. So I think we've aligned a tremendous group. So question and answer session. I'll ask, you answer. Simple as that. And maybe just to kind of kick off the discussion, why don't we start with the challenges? What do you think the biggest challenges are for digital transformation within the manufacturing industry? And maybe I'll go top to bottom here. I'll direct that one at Jason first.
I think a lot of times manufacturers don't think of the back end, right? They're very much focused on the operational piece of being able to put their product or service out to the market, right? So they're very much focused on their day-to-day job. So when it comes to this digital innovation, right, thinking about how they can streamline their operations, whether it's customer engagement, digital marketing, if they're in the B2B space, in the sales arena, how they can use some of the newer technologies to really drive valuable insights into how their products or services are being used, how they're being distributed, changes in customer demand. I think that's really the big thing that I've seen with our customers is getting them to shift that mindset from their day-to-day operations of delivering the product and service and looking for other ways to transform their business and help them grow.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, perfect. Before I jump into Ashok, we also have a poll going in the background right now. We've asked, what is the biggest digital transformation challenge in your organization right now? And as we speak, we're at a dead tie between lack of knowledgeable, staff and innovation costs, right? And that keeps going back and forth between each other. So we'll keep an eye on that as more votes come in. But Ashok, what are your thoughts on, the challenges that manufacturers are having today?
First of all, Eric, thank you for inviting us. I lose track of how many times you and I team up on these events.
It's true. It's true.
It's amazing. Manufacturing industry, as we know, has been evolving slowly, but now they're catching up rapidly. They really need to move fast compared to financial services and healthcare. We've seen a massive transformation just in the last 12 months. Manufacturing, there's a whole operational efficiency that digitalization could drive, but you also have the application side, the customer experience side, whether it's internal or in customer. So how do you shorten the manufacturing timeline? How do you bring the industrial IoT to increase quality of the production, which results in higher efficiency? I also saw some of the apparel manufacturers like Calvin Klein's of the world trying to reduce the manufacturing timeline to be almost instantaneous. So, you go online, you customize your garment, you click a button and you get it within 3 days. So how do you do that? So I think digitalization is a must. It's not an option for them. They can leverage a lot of capabilities to accelerate. And this is where I think low-code solution comes into the place. You don't take 6 months, 12 months to design a solution. You do it in 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I think there's a lot of opportunities. I see a great potential for them on all the challenges they're seeing.
Wonderful, wonderful. And before we move to you, Basil, we've got the finalized numbers. Lack of knowledgeable staff came in first, and innovation costs came in tied with outdated infrastructure. So, these are all great points. These are challenges that, we're seeing as we're talking to customers. Basil, what are your thoughts?
In addition to the comments from my colleagues here, I would say there's 3 other areas that I would put somewhat of an emphasis on, and it's customer sophistication. Customers don't know what they don't know, so they don't know necessarily 100% proactively or reactively what exactly they need to put in until someone gives them the information that there's a disparity or a gap in what they're doing. So that's the first thing that I like to focus on. The other one is infrastructure and processes. How rigid is their infrastructure? How willing is the infrastructure willing to change to make progress towards all the things like Ashok was mentioning a little bit ago, lead times, shortening the manufacturing cycle, things of that nature. And then the last one that comes to mind is just employees in general, pushback and adoption. People don't like change. People don't like their cheese being moved. So how can you tailor your culture, or how can you adapt some of your processes and pressure points within your organization to make sure that this change that you're going to be pushing them through is going to be easily adapted and a little bit easier to kind of accommodate into what they're doing today.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Basil. We look at that transformational effort, and you really have to have that culture ingrained, right? And it has to be driven from both sides. That's the common theme that we've heard, throughout the marathon, right? Where does that strategy begin? Is it a top-down strategy? Is it a bottom-up strategy? I think that it's a combination of everything. We have to make that a culture, right? It's not just things being pushed down or driven by the wants and needs of the frontline workers, but it's really that collaboration that's going to make a transformation a success. So excellent. So we'll shift gears from the challenges, and let's start to take a look at trends. And we want to see what trends are emerging in the manufacturing industry right now. And I've kind of pulled up my notes because we had a prior session where our colleagues mentioned, previously, 4 major trends for manufacturing, and kind of just to remind you and the audience, they were selling to direct customers, omni-channel lead generation, increased automation, and data-driven decisions. Do you guys think that these are the most impactful ones, or do you see other trends? And we'll go round robin here, starting from Jason again.
Yeah, I think it's all of those, and a lot of those have some underpinnings that feed into all of them, and especially the data-driven decisions. And as Ashok mentioned, companies really focusing on trying to get more out of Industry 4.0 and the IoT space. As we look at customer behaviors changing, we also have to look at how our technology and our processes change to be able to align with those changing customer expectations. That's where that feeds directly into whether it's omni-channel sales, direct to consumer sales. It's all changing. As we've seen over the last 18, 24 months, everything we thought we knew about manufacturing really changed in a lot of ways. So it's the basics of being able to create a good service and get it to the market, but it's how do we do it? How do we engage with the people that are using those goods and services that has really changed? And having the flexibility that is coming from both Industry 4.0 technologies and low-code platforms, it's enabled customers to be able to make that shift on the fly without taking that massive lead time, as Ashok mentioned before.
Perfect. And Ashok, what are your thoughts on the trends?
Just following on Jason's thoughts, for me, I think it's a direct to customer is leading the behavior. So if you just see the effect of pandemic in the last 12 or so months, there's been a huge shift from going to big restaurants or ordering from eBay or Amazon to really ordering it from the manufacturers, whether it's a food, whether it's clothes, whether it's electronics. And we are seeing big brands, even celebrity-funded brands are now going direct. Even, and I have a lovely lab, and I'm ordering food directly from the pet food manufacturer now, because they customize the pellets based on the age of the dog, and it changes it automatically. So I think this evolving really fast. So the omni-channel, all those things, automations are part of that. That's how they enable the direct to customer. Direct to customer means you have more loyalty for the brand. You control how much you can deliver, what value you can deliver to the customer. But underpinning all of those is the technology trend we are seeing that has already done amazing deliver solutions for healthcare, financial services, and so on. But I mean, manufacturing, it's huge. It's a large scale operation. It's not that easy. You can't just change within 6 months. I think change management, as Basil said, is a crucial one. If you don't get that right, a lot of the CIO I speak to across various industries, of course, cybersecurity, all those things are important, but change is the biggest concern because they just can't control it. And that's the biggest challenge. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Yep. Basil, I just before you chime in, we're getting a lot of comments on your background in the chat. Everybody loves it, so just wanted to let you know.
Thank you very much. Just for everyone in the audience, this is not a testament to my artistic capabilities whatsoever. It really only speaks to my ability to see well curated ads and impulse buy.
There you go. Perfect. Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on the trends that both Jason and Ashok have mentioned? Do you have additional thoughts, or?
I definitely think that they've covered the general basis. What I would add to the conversation, in addition to what they've already kind of brought up in their own rights and what they're seeing in their respective areas, is that there's also a level of enablement. From the perspective of the customer enablement and also employee enablement. Change management plays a factor in both of those, because if you change how customers do business with you, that's going to be a change that they have to adapt to. And if you disrupt something that's successful, you want to make sure that you've disrupted it in a positive way, not necessarily just changing it for the fact of changing it. So I think enablement is another thing to take into consideration. And going back to the element of culture, all these trends that we're talking about, how each company necessarily approaches each of these individual trends or topics will vary from organization to organization. It's not so cookie cutter as people like to assume.
Yep. Great points as well, right? And one other thing, just around trends and kind of technology. Another question that is part of our discussion today is cloud manufacturing software a big part of the manufacturing industry transformation already, or is this just kind of an emerging trend that we're seeing today?
I would comment that it's been an emerging trend for a while and gradually picking up steam. When COVID hit, I think it exacerbated the need for people to put these tools into place. They kind of resisted the change because it was such a drastic shift from having everything, in a place where they can reach out and touch their data on a regular basis. They can pet their servers, tuck it in at night, and read a bedtime story, so on and so forth. But with cloud technology, it's a major disruption on that level of ownership and that level of care that they feel that comes along with on-premises software. But cloud technology is by far becoming a very leading requirement almost for organizations to truly have that access from anywhere and on demand at all times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it and I hate always bringing this up because hopefully we're moving away from this period in our lives. But man, the pandemic really accelerated that that process, right? Digital cloud technologies probably were on the roadmap somewhere, but they had to make that shift very, very quickly. What may have been a 3 to 5 year roadmap has turned into we got to make that happen right now. Ashok, what are your thoughts?
For me, the term that I think is adaptability. So if you do not have cloud solution, how would you adapt to environment changing right under your feet, right? So if I have the traditional SAP apps or some massive ERP on-prem type of solutions, and here comes the industry change, suddenly I got to shift my gears and do massive changes. Organization needs to change, people need to change, and I don't have 24 months to do it. So the good thing about cloud is it's an on-demand solution. You can tweak it, you can increase the capacity, decrease the capacity without having to worry about data centers and all the complex problems I'm sure all of us have dealt with in our life. So I almost change the question saying, if you're not in the cloud software, how are you going to survive? It's a financial question for the CIOs and the CEOs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, and agility, to your point, Ashok, agility is crucial now. The more agile the company, the quicker they're able to adapt to change and kind of fit in right with that trend, the more successful that company ends up being just by nature of adapting to those agile platforms.
I think the other thing to think about too, when we talk about manufacturing software, I think there are certain things that also lead naturally to being in the cloud. There are other things that don't, right? MES systems obviously are going to be very, very close to the lines as you think about manufacturing. But things like planning, other processes in and around, whether that's order intake, order to cash processes, those things that still are part of the manufacturing environment, those things lend very naturally to the cloud. So I think it's something to say manufacturing systems moving to the cloud, some yes, some no. As solutions become more and more edge centric, right? So call it a fog layer, very close in the cloud, but very close and connected to these MES systems, whether it's through natural SCADA connections or other like Rockwell or Siemens, right? They're starting to expose more and more APIs so edge solutions can connect with them. So as those manufacturers allow their systems to have more connectivity, and that's part of the Industry 4.0 transformation. But as they allow that connectivity to expand, so can the movement of these cloud platforms expand within the manufacturing space. So certain things lend naturally to it, some things don't, I guess would be the thing that I'd want to add there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that we talk, we're on the low code marathon, so we got to talk about low code eventually here, right? So when we're looking at low code for the manufacturing industry, we tend to think about how that's going to help them streamline their processes, become more efficient. But one of the questions that is always posed is can low code help manufacturers grow? I have a thought on this because when you streamline processes, obviously you're going to be able to do things more efficiently, therefore helping you to grow. But where do you think the focus is for low code? Do you think it's streamlining those processes in based on efficiency, or do you think that that's actually going to help an organization grow? That's something that our audience wants to know.
Mhm.
I think one of the things, and this is whenever I take Creatio to the market to customers, and whether it's B2B or B2C, I've got a great slide that clearly talks about key areas that you can automate. And this is kind of the BPM side of it, right? So whether it's in the corporate services, the HR, the internal support, employee onboarding, right? That can help. Or if you're in the customer service realm or the order to cash, procurement, all of these are areas where you can use low code platforms to help automate these processes. And that's why something like Studio is it just empowers things faster than any other thing that I've ever used. And we do a lot of different other technologies too, but it's just one of those things, because it has the unified platform for the CRM as well as the BPM. It's just amazing how fast I can go into a customer and start implementing things and just quickly hit these low hanging fruit. And it's just like boom, 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 boom. You're starting to check things off of the I need list very quickly, and it just immediately starts showing value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ashok, Basil, what do you think as well? What are your opinions?
Yeah, I think as Jason said, in the manufacturing process, there are a lot of workflows involved, a lot of coordination involved between various manufacturing systems. There's touch points, internal customers, but also a lot of third-party suppliers in distributing the products, etc. So what we traditionally take many months to build these solutions on .NET or Java framework, whether it's cloud or on-prem, they take time because you got to design the requirement, you got to build the prototype, you go through the application development process. It's mostly IT-led, internal IT-led, even if you bring third-party suppliers, and then you bring the business to validate, etc. It's a long life cycle. What we are seeing with Creatio Low Code is you go to the business and tell them, here is what we could automate your workflow, as simple as a claims management or a order from your distributors in various countries. And we are able to design the application within 3 to 5 days. Sometimes we use a discovery demo technique where we demo, find the requirements, we demo, and so on. On the 5th day, we got the requirements mapped up in the application. And it's the business who's seeing it, and they're happy to proceed. And within 2 to 3 weeks, application is up and running. The suppliers come in, they start to use it. So it's a speed, agility, but also it's the stakeholders who are involved in designing it. It's not the traditional, I go to IT, give the specification and come back. I think that is a real power. That's what Catherine keeps saying, right? It's a speed, it's the minutes, the hours, and the days. Mm-hmm. In terms of manufacturing processes, anything that requires handoff, workflow, exchanging information, providing data analytics, visualizing the data to drive behavioral changes, I think low code is a good fit for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And to your point, Ashok, whenever you've got key stakeholders involved in the building of the processes, when it's coming to digital transformation around those processes within the manufacturing process, you've got more adoption. And when you've got more key stakeholders involved from people that are actually going to be the ones that execute the tasks or the processes, you have a very good idea of what's going to work well versus what's not. So you're able to kind of mold the way that you're approaching this low-code technology and its application to the processes. Does the people within your organization, or do the people within your organization require something as simple as a button that they click to move it from one step of the manufacturing process to the next. That's where low code can really do a lot of the heavy lifting, because if it's a standardized move from one step in the process to the next, one button click, and we've already progressed it, executed several automated actions within the process, and you've got a larger uptick in adoption rate because people are seeing just how useful the low code element is. And also from an ownership perspective, they've had contribution to what it looks like, what it's shaped, what it's formed to within the organization. So they've got much more reason to adopt it rather than resist it.
I think one other thing I want to bring up, Eric, and this is a real life example. We've got a lot of manufacturing folks on here today, but we also we found a use case at one of our clients where they had kind of a central quality and issue management. So think of incident and case management. Low code allowed us to deploy a quality and issue management system linked up with the WMS for centralized, call it disposition, right? So warehouse one or manufacturing center one finds a quality problem with a part. They can immediately, through easily integrating with the WMS, look at inventory, understand the impact or potential impact of having that quality issue, and immediately dispatch people to do surveys, take photos, all of that real quickly. We were able to roll this out in a matter of weeks, where it took us almost 6 months to build it in another technology. That was something that when we took it to the client and said, look, we can do this in about 6 weeks, we completely transformed the way they looked at how to manage their quality and issue processes in their manufacturing.
Yeah, a great example, and yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. So we're looking at it as a growth factor for organizations. You know, we work with a very large manufacturer, $4 billion manufacturer that has a quite intense quoting process, right? That takes it's very time consuming, from materials to design to supply chain, just to get the quote out to customers. And it was a very manual process. Well, by implementing low code, design throughout their organization, they were able to lower the time it took to quote by 30%. So when we're talking about growth, if you can get 30% more quotes out, that's going to have an effect on your bottom line. So I think we're all in agreement. Yeah, low code can help grow, manufacturers grow. I'd like to engage the audience a little bit, if I may. I'm going to ask another poll question here. And the poll question is, do you embrace low-code development in your organization? And we'll watch that poll and check on the results momentarily. And as we do that, I'm going to, again, shift gears a bit and talk a little bit about big data analysis, right, and predictive maintenance in manufacturing. You know, what do you think about the increasing attention around these two subjects? At this point, I'm just going to let you guys jump in anywhere. Whoever gets the table, it's like a jump ball. I throw it in the air. Whoever swats it down gets it.
I'll just throw I'll throw the big one out there, which is, I think if companies aren't thinking about predictive maintenance by now, they've already missed the ball. Because anytime, and anybody who's worked in manufacturing knows, anytime your line goes down, you are losing money. So anything you can do to prevent that line from going down, whether it's through predictive maintenance, whether it's through foreseeable changes that you need to make so you can shift lines around, any of those things it means more product going through your line and more product ultimately getting out to customers. So I'll kind of stop there, but Basil and Ashok, and you guys know just as well as anybody, customers cannot stand to have their lines go down. I used to work on the manufacturing side, and every time it went down for any reason, whether it was product shortage, maintenance, whatever, you had the ops manager out there banging at your door going, get this line back up.
I read an interesting case study a month ago. One of the large manufacturers had a problem. Every time the needle breaks in their sewing process, the factory has to shut down for an hour, because when it falls, it shatters. So they got to clean all the parts before they can restart. So they added a sensor which can proactively tell when it's going to break. So all it took was 1 minute to replace it. So just brought it from 1 hour to 1 minute. Yeah, I agree. But I think predictive maintenance, yes, I totally agree that the companies really must do it. But the big data analytics also equally very important because it highlights where there are process issues, where there are bottlenecks, and use the data to drive more growth or efficiency. And we see this quite a lot in other sectors, as I mentioned, because we cut across multiple industries. So we are seeing financial services really far ahead on the big data analytics. Healthcare is coming close. They've been working on it. I think manufacturing industry, some companies do it really great, but in my experience, 60 to 70% are still trying to get their arms around. It could be the first polls showed, right, 38% of the audience are saying lack of knowledge staff is the key issue. That could be a contributor. The data-led business, we know they do a lot better than others. So yeah, totally agree.
Mm-hmm. And to carry on that as well, I mean, when you're talking about predictive maintenance and big data just in general, predictive maintenance can make or break whether or not someone's throwing a gasket, and it also extends beyond the actual machines that keep the lines going too. I mean, you can install predictive and then replace maintenance with just being predictive in general. Systems exist to give information, and as long as you understand your business and what elements affect the uptime of your lines, that really is what you need to have visibility of. So that goes all the way back to supply chain even, and being predictive around that. ERPs and MRPs can give you that insight, but realistically, if you have another system that can be a little bit more predictive in just minimum stock levels, for example, that really does allow the prevention of this, because you can forecast demand in one system and see how it's going to flow and impact your production lines as well. And big data, it's kind of humorous to see people about how they interact with big data, because they look at it and like, yeah, all this stuff. What do I do with it? and then big data is really great, but you have to know what you're going to do with it, because if it's just there for the sake of being there, I mean, you might as well just have a nice large digital paperweight sitting there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that I would agree with that. The biggest challenge is, it's not the data. It's not a data challenge. It's how do you make that actionable, right? And that's where I think people, kind of get lost. So, perfect. So we got our results of the poll. We have in the lead, yes, we are embracing low-code development in their organization. That's at 40, a little north of 41%. We have another 30% at yes, we have positive results, and that is tied with no, not yet. Audience, you have three gentlemen on the call here that would love to talk to you about low code. So hit them up, and we'll make sure that we we get you in contact. Perfect. So I think we're coming up on time. So let me take just a kind of a couple of questions here from the audience, and we can wrap up our session here, guys. So the first question I have is, what defines whether digital transformation would be successful for the company or not?
Oh man, that is such an ambiguous question. I feel like that really depends on the KPIs, the initiatives of the organization as well. I mean, we had this conversation, I think, in one of the last sessions that we did around digital transformation in general, which is, the success of a digital transformation should be based off of factors defined by the organization. So where are your pain points? What exactly are you trying to undergo digital transformation to achieve? And then how you can kind of back into how you measure that. And if you don't even know the topics that you're trying to solve for digital transformation, that's your first barrier that you have to overcome. What exactly does digital transformation mean? It can't just be this cutesy thing that you hear as a buzzword and you're like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. You need to really embrace a strategy and a planning schedule, steering committee of what exactly that means, and then start building actionable items around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I immediately went back to our last conversation as well, Basil. Focus on the outcome, right? That's gonna determine the success of your transformation effort or not. So, Jason, Ashok, there you go.
I'll keep it short. Just want to add. Usually, what I've seen is digital transformation is a board agenda. because it requires capital and it requires executive sponsorship. So board has to define, yes, we are going to do this over the next 3 to 5 years. Here is the ROI we are expecting. Here is the investment we are going to commit. And here is the executive at the board level who will be responsible for driving it. And then the outcome is measured based on hitting the ROI, right? And it's less to do with technology. It's more to do with business change. So you might want to shift your manufacturing from a highly integrated to decoupled, decentralized, so they can be a lot more agile. So there can be a lot of parameters, but it's usually board has to commit. If your board doesn't commit, it really won't work. That's what I think.
Agreed.
I definitely agree as well. Yeah, that's almost a cultural thing as well. You know, the culture of the company, you know, it has to be enforced from the top down. They're the ones that set the standard and the expectation.
Yep. Great point. Great point. Do we have time for one more? Where are we at? I don't see any red lights flashing yet, so we got time for one more. So let me. Does privacy play a vital role in the reluctance to change at both the human and organizational levels? So again, does privacy, play a vital role in that reluctance, to change?
I think some companies are reluctant, especially in the banking financial sector. They're very concerned about having customer information where they can't control it. I think that the last 5 to 10 years in moving, especially things like CRM systems to the cloud, companies have gotten more used to it or more accustomed to it. You look and Ashok, you work more in the banking financial space than we do, but I know even if you think about claims and policy admin, right, there's just no way insurance companies are going to ever put that stuff on the cloud. They don't want the risk of that sitting out there. That being said, especially in the manufacturing space, I think that companies are a little more less hesitant to be able to move to the cloud. I do think that they struggle with what to move and when to move, but companies have gotten really good. Cloud providers have gotten really good about ensuring that they're SOC compliant and ensuring that they have PCI compliance. So most of those concerns, I think, have been addressed adequately enough over the last 5 to 10 years that companies' hesitancy has come down.
Absolutely. And I would piggyback on top of that, saying that the understanding of what exact privacy standards exist with each individual cloud platform, the lack of knowledge or the lack of foresight to even ask the question, that's definitely something that if you proactively breach that topic with the individual customer, typically they're a lot more put at ease by the concept and making that migration to the cloud. You're eliminating that very, very quickly.
Yeah, all I want to say is we are seeing, even in an extremely sensitive industry, even public sector, government, etc., they are moving to the cloud, but in a more constrained cloud. If you don't mind, so there's a boundary around it. There are multiple boundaries before cyber attack could come through. So it's a matter of determining which aspect you can put it on the cloud, which you cannot, and you partition it, because you can have it's a hybrid solution is possible, right? Defining that. But other than that, privacy is common for all industries. You have to protect the data, you've got to have the process. But the good thing about manufacturing industries is highly process driven. So the audience know what process is, how to control it. They probably need more awareness and proven concept and proven framework to implement it, so you don't do trial and error.
Excellent. All right. Well, gentlemen, that brings us to time for our session. What a wonderful discussion. As always, just a phenomenal presence here on our session. As always, you guys never are short to deliver. So I really appreciate you taking the time. And hopefully we'll have a few more of these. Ashok, I know you and I will be doing something at some point in the near future. We're a team. We should keep track of how many. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. right. So there's our poll. But hey, let's wrap up our day here with our quiz of the day, right? Our chance to win some great prizes. And the question for today is, how many apps will be created between the years 2018 and 2023? These are some large numbers that you see here, so good luck with that. So we'll be announcing the winners on tomorrow's session. And yeah, we'll be announcing those winners and moving on with our prizes. As just a reminder, please download our global report on the state of low code, no code. And we also have the ability to download our latest version, Creatio 7.18. You can either copy the QR code here on the screen, or go out to our website, creatio.com, and you can download a trial. We also ask that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you've liked the content that you've seen on the marathon, we have plenty out there on our YouTube channel as well. And we also have our podcast, Low Code Talks, which can be made available on any of the platforms that you see here. And finally, let's look to join day 8 of the marathon. Again, we're going to be talking about professional service organization, and how low code can help them into the future. So a lot of great sessions tomorrow. And, we encourage everybody to join as it's been very beneficial for us and hopefully for you. So thank you, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.